Alongside Blair Angulo, I am Emily Proud. Welcome into the College Football Recruiting Show. A reminder to hit that like button and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Let's tell you what's on tap for today's show. We have the latest on five-star offensive tackle David Sanders, who is fresh off his second visit to the SHU this spring, plus more recruiting intel across the country with our friend Tom Loy, and recaps from camps coast to coast. We have Elite 11 and All 22 in Las Vegas and Under Armour, New Jersey. But first, let's welcome in national recruiting analyst Tom Loy for the latest on all the recruiting intel from across the country. Let's start with five-star offensive tackle David Sanders, who visited Columbus this weekend. This was, as I just said, his second trip there this spring, so things must be going pretty well for the Buckeyes. Where do they currently stand in this race?
The buzz around Ohio State is very real, Emily. My crystal ball prediction has been on Clemson since March 27th, and I still feel good about it. But if I'm picking a school to upset them and a school that's the biggest threat to potentially make me change that pick down the road, it's absolutely the Buckeyes. These stealth, behind-the-scenes, under-the-radar visits that don't really leak until a player arrives on campus, it's something it's worth keeping an eye on, watching, especially when that's exactly what occurred and you have all your family on campus there with you in Columbus. So this is a big deal. Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, Justin Fry, they're all doing excellent work here. I think people need to take Ohio State very seriously when it comes to the pursuit of David Sanders. So watch out for the Buckeyes.
Things worked out pretty well for the last former number one offensive tackle that ended up at Ohio State. That was Paris Johnson Jr. in the 2020 class. He became a top 10 pick in the NFL draft last year. Now, Tom, you put in a crystal ball prediction for James Simon to end up at Texas this past weekend. There are a couple other predictions for LSU, but what has you leaning horns in this battle?
I, too, initially had my crystal ball pick on LSU. That was the team that I saw eventually securing his commitment, and everybody around him made that clear, that the Tigers were the team to beat. They had the edge. But as time went on and following his process and an outstanding visit to Austin, I believe Texas is now the team to beat. I spoke with multiple sources on Sunday. I was just coming off vacation a couple days away, and there's a lot of confidence coming from the Longhorns football program. So, and then when I'm checking in with people around LSU, there's not a ton of buzz and a lot of confidence there. So at this point, I really think that Notre Dame might be the biggest threat to land James Simon. But so unless there's clear misdirection, and I think there's just too much noise to ignore, too much buzz to ignore around Texas right now. So Steve Sarkisian, Tashard Choice, area recruiter Terry Joseph, they're all doing an outstanding job right now connecting with Simon and his family. I like the Longhorns to get this one done in the not-so-distant future.
All right, I want to go back to the big guys up front. Four-star offensive lineman Peyton Joseph. He has kind of two leaders in the clubhouse right now. One of them is Florida State, which you and many others have crystal ball picks in for the Noles to land him. Memphis also in this race. But what is it about Florida State that has them leading here?
For a while, even when Joseph was still committed to Florida, I was told to keep a very close eye on Florida State. They were pushing all the right buttons, doing a great job of catching his eye, grabbing his attention, and he heads to Tallahassee for what I would consider a game changer of a visit. Joseph then decommits from the Gators, and then myself, as well as my guys over at 24/7 Sports, Zach Blowstein, Chris Nee, Blake Alderman, we all kind of teamed up, and we're all reported all the positive buzz as it relates to the Seminoles' chances at landing the top 150 talent. So the majority of us tossed in picks right then for Florida State to get it done on the crystal ball, but don't rule out Memphis quite yet. I mean, he's going to take an official visit. He's got a ton of interest in the Tigers. The interest is real, and they're not only a threat to land Joseph, but they're also a top contender to land his good friend and teammate, top 100 quarterback Antoine Hill. So while I think Florida State is definitely the team to beat right now, don't sleep on Memphis. I think they got an absolute shot. We'll see how things go in June.
Top 24/7 cornerback Tristan Haynes is set to announce his commitment on Tuesday. You've got Miami, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. They all have visits on the official itinerary for later this spring and summer. But, Tom, a couple of predictions have gone in for the Sooners. How well situated is Oklahoma in this battle down the stretch?
Blair, this recruitment got a lot more interesting than I think a lot of people expected. Early on, the perception was that Haynes was all Oklahoma. The Sooners were the favorite publicly, privately. The crystal ball had him ending up in Norman. And then Notre Dame offered and kind of shook things up a little bit. And to take it a step further, Haynes visited South Bend in April. And some people even thought that the Irish kind of pulled ahead in that process. So people kept asking me, like, why aren't you putting in a crystal ball for Notre Dame? There's so much buzz. But for me, essentially, I didn't really know if they're. I was waiting for top 100 cornerback Dallas Golden to commit to Notre Dame, and that finally happened. The Irish also hold a commitment from Creed Thomas right there, and a guy you know really well, Blair, at the cornerback position. So I also think Notre Dame's in a great spot with top 100 quarterback Mark Zachary. So in the end, I expect Golden, Thomas, Zachary all at Notre Dame, and I think in the end, Oklahoma's going to land Haynes. So I think that, and I don't want people to think that Notre Dame, filled up, and that's why Haynes isn't picking Notre Dame. I think Oklahoma is a school that's been on him since the start. They've recruited him harder than anybody. And in this day and age, when you really need to lock up your spot or your spot's going to be gone, I think Haynes kind of saw the writing on the wall. I don't see him taking all the official visits he had planned. I think he is ready to make a choice. He knows where he wants to be, and I expect that to be in Norman as an Oklahoma Sooner.
I'm glad you're still hearing from the Irish fans, helping with your transition a little bit. They still want to let you know what they have to say. How about four-star safety Ladarian Clarity? He took an official to Washington over the weekend. How was the sell from the Huskies?
So, in my opinion, Washington went from a team to just kind of watch, keep an eye on, to now I'd consider them a top contender. The staff is excellent at recruiting, building relationships, and that's key for Clarity. So that's going to give him a shot there. So in talking to Clarity after the visit, he made it very clear this was a visit that was kind of a game changer for him in the sense that the Huskies are a very real threat to land him now that he's finally, stepped foot on campus. So the staff told him he's a top priority. That resonated really well for him. But big picture, keep an eye on Ole Miss. There's a lot of people that believe they've done a better job than anybody from day one of making him a priority, pushing the right buttons. I'm also keeping an eye on Vanderbilt. They're a legit threat. That would be a massive win for Clark Lee and his staff. So, and then when you look at in-state, it was essentially just UCF as the team to beat for a long time. But Florida just jumped in with an offer, and he called it a curveball, according to 24/7 Sports' Blake Alderman. So we'll see what happens. He's got some visits still to take, multiple official visits, a long way to go before he makes a decision. But the Huskies did a really good job this weekend.
I know you were on vacation last week, Tom, but you were pretty busy over the weekend. Another crystal ball to ask you about. Noah Grubs to Notre Dame, the 2026 quarterback. You like the Irish right now. Why?
Yeah, vacations are something I do very well at. My wife would tell you. But for a while, much of the buzz with Notre Dame quarterback recruiting in 2026 was around Brady Hart, a fellow top 247 talent in the Sunshine State, just like Noah Grubs. Notre Dame was doing a great job with him, got him on campus for a visit that couldn't have gone any better. The Irish were absolutely the leader for him, and I still think they are. But as of late, things seem to be trending in a very positive direction between Notre Dame and Noah Grubs, one of the most productive passers in the country. But my sources have indicated that Notre Dame also leads for him, and Marcus Freeman, Mike Denbrock, Gino Guidugli are all pushing the right buttons and doing a terrific job with him. But, man, you look at the quarterback room as a whole. They flipped Kenny Minchie from 2 years ago, a four-star talent. They landed C.J. Carr last cycle, got top 150 quarterback Deuce Knight committed right now. Wouldn't necessarily call him the most firm, but I do believe he's fairly solid in that pledge. Still talking to a couple other schools. And then if you can go ahead and land Grubs in 2026, that's a massive haul. And to be completely honest, it is the healthiest quarterback room I've seen at Notre Dame in a very long time. But I will say the only thing that could change essentially my prediction for Grubs or Grubs landing at Notre Dame would be that if Brady Hart, who, again, somebody that I said was Notre Dame led for a little while, at least after that visit, he changes his timetable. He is planning on making a decision after his junior season, so he's in no hurry. But obviously he's looking around. He's seeing all the dominoes falling. If he changes his mind and moves things forward and quickly and decides to call Marcus Freeman and commit, that could shake things up. But the quarterback dominoes are falling, man. It'll be something to watch.
Certainly love to track those quarterback dominoes, and we appreciate you tracking them for us down the line in the 2026 class. That's just how all of these moving parts work together. I hope you were able to get maybe somewhat of a vacation, but we always appreciate you hopping on with us here, Tom. Thank you so much. You can check out more of his work, as always, on 247sports.com. There you'll find the latest on Cormani McClain. You got winners and losers from the transfer portal, and Tom has a VIP story on how Tennessee's five-star quarterback is warding off some schools looking to flip him. You're going to want to read that. Check it out on 247sports.com. As we inch closer to the Elite 11 finals next month, another regional took place in Las Vegas over the weekend. Sin City also playing host to the All-22 regional. A busy weekend in the desert, and our guy Greg Biggins was there to take it all in and is now joining us here on the show to give us a full recap of everything happening in Vegas over the weekend. Football-wise, we don't need to know what was happening on the Strip. But Greg, thank you so much for being here to give us a full breakdown. Let's start with the top player in Hawaii who was there. That was quarterback Jiren Sagapola. Hope I did all right. How did he do?
Nice work. He did great. You know, he was our alpha dog, not just me, Blair, Huffman. We all had a great time out there. So, no, Jiren, I thought he had the strongest arm in the camp, one of the strongest arms I've seen on the tour this year. That includes quarterbacks, not just locally, but nationally. I mean, the guy can absolutely rip the football. Southpaw. I don't know what it is about lefties. It always looks smooth, whether it's golf, throwing a bowling ball, or a football. But Jiren, man, he's got a big-time arm. He was smart. He can take drops under center, rolling out right, rolling out to the left. I love the pace that he played with. I think he's got a chance to make the Elite 11 finals. It'd be fun to see, be biased. I'm a little biased for the Hawaiian boys, but I would love to see him make it. I think he's got a great chance. He had a great weekend, I thought.
He is, I think, the closest thing at the high school level that we've seen to Michael Penix over the last couple of years from a frame standpoint, from a cadence standpoint, with the rhythm that he throws the football. And interestingly enough, Washington was one of those first offers that he got when Kalen DeBoer was still there. So he made it up to Seattle last year, took a photo with Penix, and says he really studies his game. So he's excited to see what he can do in Atlanta in that quarterback battle. He's really impressive. I hope we do get to see him in Los Angeles at the finals this summer. Another quarterback that really stood out to us, Greg, was Robert McDaniel. He's headed to Berkeley to play for the Cal Bears. What did you like about his game?
I mean, I liked everything. And, dude, first off, I'm going to steal that Michael Penix from you, boy. That's a great comp right there. I'm definitely going to take that. McDaniel, for me, suddenness. You don't hear it a lot with quarterbacks. You hear it more with, skill players, receivers with the ball in their hands. But I like the way he plays, the way he moves in the pocket. His drops, the way the ball comes out. I thought he had one of the quicker, tighter releases in the camp. I thought he was very accurate. Some of the drills were just basically you get the ball and just get it out as quickly as you can. He was able to do that from different arm angles, which I've always been a big fan of. Looked very comfortable there. We saw him at the Under Armour camp in SoCal last month or back in March. He was okay. I thought he was really good this past weekend. Again, cliche time. I thought he checked off all the boxes for me. Again, drops or under center, accuracy to all three levels of the field. Very confident, very poised, made all the throws that I want to see. I think Cal's got a really good quarterback coming in.
Not just quarterbacks. Let's talk about some receivers. Top 247 wide receiver Phillip Bell. He is wanted by power conferences, really coast to coast. But what did you think of his performance this weekend?
I mean, obviously it was a quarterback camp, but I couldn't get my eyes off the receivers. I thought the receiver group was the strongest in that all-22 by a wide margin. And Phillip Bell, he's had a really good offseason. We saw him at the Under Armour camp back in March. I mentioned that with McDaniel, and Bell was a top performer there this past weekend. Again, really, really impressive. He probably the most technically sound route runner. Talking to some of the wide receiver coaches there, they said he's a college-level route runner right now, right? He's got the frame, body control, really, really smooth, soft hands. You don't even hear the ball, and he's up the field. And I liked how after every one of his catches, he's turning it up, going in the end zone every single time. So really impressed with Phillip Bell, not just this past weekend, but all off season. I think he's kind of lived up to a lot of the hype he got as an early freshman sophomore.
He's going to be really busy in the coming months. He's got official visits locked in with places like Washington, Penn State, Tennessee, USC, Ohio State, which knows a thing or two about wide receivers. He was decked out in Ohio State gear, actually, wearing a pair of Ohio State gloves and a pair of Ohio State sweatpants, so watch out for the Buckeyes there as well. Another player that we really, really loved was Kaden Wyatt, the 2026 four-star wide receiver for Mater Dei out in Southern California. You're very familiar with his game. GB, you've called him a prototype wide receiver. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, been watching him since 8th grade. I saw him at the Under the Radar camp as an 8th grader, and originally from NorCal. And I feel like those guys from the Bay Area have a little bit more toughness and edge. Not to get any of my SoCal friends unhappy, but the guy's got a little bit of dog in him for sure. He's got a very projectable frame. He's got a lean 6'2", 175-pound frame. This guy's going to be 215 when he hits the weight room in college. Got a little bit of a Julio Jones type game for me. Again, strong hands, body control, explosive route runner. And again, he's not even close to being where he's going to be, not just physically, but again, talking to some of those receiver coaches, they said, he's still kind of raw as a route runner. He just gets by just by being quicker, stronger, and more athletic, but made 50-50 catches, contested catches. He was fun to watch. Again, I was watching the quarterback play. I could not take my eyes off the guy in the red shorts, which was Jaren Wyatt. He was probably my alpha for the whole entire weekend. I love the way he competed and played all weekend.
All right, speaking of Southern California products and modern day guys, you've got the offensive lineman, Sione Tohi. What did you like about his performance?
Yeah, and I mean, not to make it all about the Monarchs, but they did have a pretty good weekend. They do have some pretty good players that are good at football. Sione kind of got overshadowed a bit last year playing alongside guys like Brendan Baker and DeAndre Carter. But honestly, you talk to some of the coaches at Modern Day, they felt that Sione Toa, we call him Wheela, they thought he might have been the most consistent offensive lineman at times last year. He's a guard, he can play some tackle, right or left side. The lineman competition was actually pretty entertaining. A lot of good players on both sides, defensive linemen, edge, interior guys. So Sione took reps as a guard and as a tackle. I think it's a guard at that college level, but just advanced technique, right? All those modern day guys always going to have a little bit of an advanced technique, kind of like the Bishop Gorman kids where we were on Sunday, but super strong, really good feet. Like the way he could recover if he was beat initially. Long arms, tough, nasty. Again, cliche Tom, you call him a box checker. He's got everything you want to see, the next level interior guard. I love the way his game is progressing and trending right now.
I love it. Thank you both for heading out to Vegas and giving us some great insight into all the prospects and all the talent that was there. Greg, you're the best. Be sure that you are subscribed thanks, to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. We have a great video up now that you're will not want to miss. Carl Reed and Smoke Dixon, they actually went head-to-head on all the drama with Deion Sanders in Colorado. You can watch that and a whole lot more on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Please wait until after this show, though. We would appreciate that. We now go from one coast to the other for the Under Armour Next New Jersey, featuring some of the top players in the Northeast, including the #1 prospect in the class of 2025. And speaking of top talent in the Northeast, you just saw him. Let's welcome in our friend, national recruiting analyst, Brian Dohn, who was there. Brian, let's start with 5-star quarterback Bryce Underwood. That seems like a good place to start. How'd the LSU commit look this weekend?
Yeah, that's a nice segue by you, by the way. Not accurate with my talent level, but, nice job. But, hey, it was great seeing Bryce. For me, it was fun because it was the first time I saw him since his freshman year when I saw him at a 7-on-7. And I remember him then because Alan True, our guy who does the Midwest, was, knew early on how good this kid was going to be and told me to keep an eye. But it was raining. It was windy. Of course, it's New Jersey, and that's what Under Armour is every year with that camp. And it was like a sunny day for him. Ball came out free and easy. He was accurate. He could throw all three levels. Really impressed with his ability to drive the ball down the field. Also, the flick of the wrist, and it just goes flying. I mean, I saw what I expected to see because you don't become the top prospect in the country and not be able to perform at event after event and in games. But just seeing how much he's grown physically and how his body is really filled out and just how comfortable and relaxed he is while he's throwing the ball and just how easy the ball pops out of his hand. Boy, it was really fun to watch, and it really sends that message of, hey, this is what the elite of the elite look like.
Brian, let's stay on the quarterbacks and talk a little Matt Zollers. Missouri fans are really excited about him. That was a huge recruiting victory for the Tigers earlier this offseason. Pennsylvania native, so you're very familiar with him. What did you think of him and his performance this past weekend?
Yeah, this was my first chance to see him live, so it was exciting for me. And, he's in these events, Blair, and you guys know, you only get to see half of what a guy like this can do because he's also a kid that can run the ball really well, and you don't really go to a camp to run as a quarterback. But, look, for me, arm strength was exactly where you wanted it to be. I mean, he threw some balls on the intermediate routes that were just on a laser. There was one ball where I know he was a little uncertain when he was going to let it go. It was going to go down the field, and don't forget they're working with new receivers. And he was flat-footed, kind of low, and he just flicked it, and it went 40 yards to the back of the end zone. And it was a good pass on target, gave the receiver a chance to make it. There were some of the shorter throws where, as he matures and gets a little more seasoned and some more coaching, he's going to take something off so he doesn't just rip through the receiver's gloves on some of those short passes. But overall, the arm strength is really what stood out, and just his ability to drive the ball. And he has the size. And then just from watching film and understanding what he can do as a runner, it's why he's our number 62 recruit, our number 6 quarterback. I mean, he's got a ton of ability as well.
One more quarterback I want to ask you about, Malik Washington. He's a 4-star out of Maryland. I will say he has a lot of fans around this office, namely our producer, who is also out of that part of the country. Really loves his game. You got to see him in person. What does he look like?
Well, listen, I've seen Malik a bunch of times, and he's a guy that used to play for Team Carmelo for AAU hoops. So he's a guy who's a really good basketball player. But as a football player, I've seen him a bunch, and so I kind of knew what to expect just in terms of arm strength, his size, his touch on some of his passes, which is really good. He really throws a nice deep ball to where he just lays it out there, spins it well. But for me, the question I get a lot from people is, because he was a dual sport kid, or is still, how much does he love football? And I've always said he loves it. You can tell with his work ethic and talking to his coaches and talking to him and how much time he puts in. He drove up from Maryland up to New Jersey camp because there's an Elite 11 the same time as an Under Armour camp down in Baltimore, and he's going to go to the Elite 11. So he wants to go out and compete, and that's really promising. He doesn't hide from the competition. But, I mentioned before, and I probably will a few times, that it was rainy, it was windy, it was not a good day. Man, you would have thought this kid was enjoying like Greg Biggins type weather out in SoCal. He was smiling, he was dancing, having fun, as he's waiting for his next rep, and he just really enjoyed it. And what I took out of it, and I talked to our guy Hudson Standish, who was up from Texas to watch him, and we spoke about how it just looks like he's enjoying himself out there and having fun and relaxed. And to me, that's really what I took out of it, because it shows the enjoyment he had in the day, and it really was not a nice day.
Brian, moving on to another position, wide receiver, which maybe is a little bit tough to execute in those conditions, right? The rain and kind of the elements that are against you. But wide receiver Lex Cyrus, he might be a little bit undersized, but one, Brian, we can't measure his heart, and two, power conference programs are all over him. What did you think of him on Sunday?
Well, we can't measure his heart, but we can measure his speed, and it's fast. I mean, he's a consistently not only sub 11, but he's more in the 10.6, 10.7 range. And when he gets it, he can go. This was my first time seeing him live, and so it was fun to see. And what really stood out, and why I wanted to speak with him and speak about him here, is he was just electric getting off of the line. His release was sensational. Gets off quick. Those first 5 yards, it's like he's just shot out of a cannon and goes. Even out of his breaks, it's fast, it's smooth, it looks effortless, and everything about him throughout the day I'm not going to say the field was slippery because it's turf and it was wet and, life goes on, but you wouldn't know it was raining. He didn't have any of those troubles. He was continually getting away from the DBs, whether it was on the short stuff, the intermediate stuff, whether it was stop and go to go deeper. He just wanted to run by the cornerback. He was able to do all that. And seeing him in the whole package that he can bring to a game, not only catch the ball, but to run after the catch. Blair, I don't care that he's 5'10", because he can line up in the slot, and if you can get him the ball in a little bit of space, he can run for a long time. And there's a lot of excellent players in college football who are receivers who are his size.
All right, Brian, you keep talking about the weather, how it was not great. It sounds like it was potentially perfect conditions to hand the ball off. So let's talk about a running back in John Forrester. He has a busy summer of visits ahead as he makes his decision. While we wait that, though, what did he look like this weekend?
Yeah, I was impressed with him just in terms of his footwork is good. It's better than what it was last year. He looks, his shoulders are really wide. He looked quicker. He looked faster. When they were doing the one-on-ones where the linebackers were trying to cover him, we'll say, because they weren't doing a good job, every time you looked up, he had yards of separation from whoever was trying to cover him. Caught the ball with ease. And I think when I look at his body type, I think he's a kid that, look, he can run between the tackles, and there's a lot of Big Ten schools that are heavy on him, like, Illinois, Rutgers, Wisconsin. And so you think of between the tackle running, but what I really saw that I had not seen from him in the past was just comfort in catching the ball. And I know Augie Hoffman is back there as the head coach at St. Joseph Regional. And Augie used to, spend some time at Rutgers as a coach, spent some time at Columbia, and he's back at the high school level. And in speaking to him, he said he's really seen a difference just in Forster, how he's changed his body a little bit and is really hungry for this year. And I saw a lot more explosiveness from him than I had seen in the past. And it's not to say he wasn't explosive before, but kind of had that next gear to it and really just looked comfortable and effortless in some of the stuff he did.
You also got to see four-star offensive lineman Kai Pritchard, one of the top players in the trenches for that 2026 class, and he has the offers to back it up. So, Brian, how did he live up to the hype on Sunday?
Yeah, listen, he's a Jersey Shore kid, so, let's get rid of some of maybe the stereotypes that people may have of Jersey Shore. He is tough, he is gritty, he is athletic. I think at the end of the day, he's probably an interior guy. This was my first look at him in a setting like this. I thought he was able to bend really well. He was strong at the point of attack. In the one-on-ones, he was able to mirror. He moved his feet well. Just overall athleticism impressed me a lot more than I maybe thought I was going to see after watching some of the tape. And I just think you look at him, he's coming out of his sophomore year, still a young kid, time to grow with him. And I just think that he's one of those guys that maybe he can play right tackle, probably going to be an interior guy at the college level, I think. But he brings great versatility to the offensive line, and watching him compete in the reps and go through the drills, just the way he moved was fluid and better than I anticipated, and I went in with high expectations.
I love it. Brian, thank you for braving the conditions and for going inside and talking to us today. We do appreciate it. No, we poke fun, but that is a big part of the evaluation to see how those guys handle that pressure and the not perfect conditions. But thank you for being here with us. And if you like more in-depth recruiting talk, well, man, you're going to love this podcast, 24/7 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast with Andrew Ivins and Cooper Patagna. As far as we know, this is the only podcast solely covering recruiting. And if there are others, I can confidently say that it is the best and most informative one that you will find. New episodes drop Tuesday and Wednesday. You can listen wherever you get your podcast. A reminder to hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel on the way out. For Blair Angulo, I am Emily Proud, and this is the College Football Recruiting Show.